Hello, everyone. Don't panic. We are here. It's All for Women's Football. It's our WSL 7-day roundup. We're going to throw in a little bit about the news in the middle of the week about the tier 3 to 6 shake-up that's all just gone ever so slightly wrong. And we're going to look at how does that affect the top two divisions, or do we need to sort those two out before we worry about what happens at the foot of the pyramid? You tell us. We'll talk about it on the other side of this. Right, well, I hope you enjoyed Little Boogie there, but it is time for another show here on All Women's Football. And once again, we are joined by the delightful duo that is Sean and B. We're an N away from that being an amazing actor from up north. We'll start with the B, which is, of course, Beatrice. How are you doing?
I'm all good, thanks. How are you, Barry?
Loving life. It's a Monday and I'm chatting women's football. What could be better than that? And Sean, how are you?
Yeah, all good. It's international break. My favourite. I love international break, so cannot wait for a good 2 weeks of international football.
You are a bit of a fan of the old internationals, and a big hello to those of you who have joined us in the chat already. So, listen, let's get straight into it, shall we? We are looking at, I shall not mention that, Michael, do not worry about it. We do not need that to happen at all today. But we can talk about the Reds to begin with, because obviously the WSL weekend is a rare treat, actually, that they're all on the same day. It's been a while since we've had them all on the same day. We've had them split over a Friday and a Saturday, but now all 6 games were on the Sunday. And I thought it was quite an interesting one, but it kicked off with Manchester United against Everton. Now, Sean, I'm going to come to you first on this one, purely because you were an interloper on the channel, the other channel that we're on, and you came in and you said you were envious. Pray tell why. Why would you be envious of Manchester United? What do you make of their 2-0 win over Everton?
Well, I get Mark Skinner's not everyone's cup of tea, and those debates will be rambling on for as long as he's there, and that's fine. I accept that we all have different opinions, but I'm envious in the sense that the way you can just get results, like, yes, the football isn't exactly exciting, but you win. There's never any drama. You just find a way to win, bar Liverpool. And I think that's quite a skill to just, tick off these games. And Everton are not an easy opponent. I think Everton have been really good run of form as of late. But, an easy 2-0 win. There's just envious at the sort. You can just get results, get the wins you need. And you've formed a really good gap on City now. Even if you lost 2 of the final 3 games, it's still in your own hands. So, yeah, I'm envious of the fact you can and the team as well, I think is a very good, and good players. I think Man United are an excellent team more than anything. The players, there's a lot of good players there. But yeah, I think it is a skill to just churn out wins, which is what United are doing. So I think that's the bit I'm envious of the most, to be honest.
No, fair enough. B, you've been on and spoken a fair bit now about the things that are going on at the WSL. What is your take, first of all, on Mark Skinner? There's lots of talk already in the chat about Mark Skinner being in charge, and a lot of debate as to what should happen this season. The deadline for his contract to be renewed was today, so for the option to be activated had to happen today in order for it to be a year. Otherwise, it's got to be a full contract that is offered. What do you make of it? Because there's a lot. I'm an R about this quite a lot, because they have, I think it's a pros and cons list that you kind of got here, because there's no doubting you've got the best WSL season comes under Mark Skinner. The first major trophy comes under Mark Skinner. All of these things come under Mark Skinner, but then you look at some of the perceived negatives, which is that he doesn't necessarily have the best track record with some of his players. There's question marks around that. which side of the fence do you fall on? What do you reckon about Mark Skinner being the leader of Manchester United?
I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know that much when it comes to this debate. I don't have too much to say, but with managers generally, I think it's really hard, especially as someone looking in from the outside, to make a fair judgment on what's going on. But for me personally, as a player, I think the most important is the relationship the manager has with the players, and if that's something that's breaking down, I think that's quite crucial. Of course, the results are important. Like Sean was saying, they seem to be getting good results under him at the moment, at least. So, I mean, maybe that's what the club are taking into account. But I do think that the relationship the manager has with the players is so crucial to build a strong team going forward.
Well, we know that you are a bit of a gooner, so we could perhaps mention Jonas Eidebau in this conversation. What did you make of him being the manager when he left? Was that the right decision for you? And if so, why?
Yeah, I think at the time I was questioning the time of that departure right before the Champions League game. It felt quite a weird time to get rid of the manager, but it seems to have paid off. From what I've heard and can tell, he didn't seem to have a solid relationship with some of the players. And once that breaks down, players aren't going to follow what a manager's saying on pitch. So I think that's crucial for a team that's looking to progress and move forward. But I think the difference probably is they weren't really getting results around the time he left, whereas like we're saying, it kind of sounds like Man United are. So it's kind of hard to justify, I guess, from the club's point of view, getting rid of him if they're still performing.
No, absolutely. I think that is where we are with that, and that's why JJ is saying a new contract is completely expected in the current context. And I kind of have to ask, like Sean, it seems to me like it's common sense at this situation that is there a reason to not renew and or at least offer? Because let's not forget, if you do offer a new contract, you have to still accept it and take it. But to offer a contract, it seems almost mad not to. We're talking about a potential Champions League for the second time for Manchester United, something that was never achieved under Casey Stoney. So you have to kind of look at that and say it's the right decision, no, to offer him a contract. Whether people like it or not, you can't argue with where the places are. If you're going to start getting rid of people that are finishing in the top three and are barely losing, have got one of the best defensive records in the league, and on track to potentially make at least a third FA Cup final on the trot, if not win it again. Like, that seems a bit weird. And I do genuinely challenge most Man United fans. If you were to say, we're going to give you a manager who's going to win you the FA Cup, get you into two finals, working on the theory that he's going to make it into the next final, obviously, and also give you your best ever finish in the league, I think most of them would say, excellent, where is this manager? Who are they? And then the minute you say Mark Skinner, oh, well, he's a PE teacher from Birmingham, is generally the general gist there. People have been a bit harsh on Mark Skinner.
If you're looking at it from just an on-pitch perspective, just purely the results, the manner of games, third in the table by 7 points. Did we expect that at the start of the season? I'd say no. In all honesty, I think a lot of United fans probably wouldn't have expected to be in this strong a position as they are now. Another FA Cup is certainly a possibility. There's just on the pitch, there's nothing much you can really go against him. But what I agree with what B says is, I think that relationship between the manager and the players is absolutely paramount and so crucial. And you look at what Irene Guerrero said, Chase, the whole handling of the Vilda Boarisa situation. And there's like, maybe you can look at patterns and then you say, well, and it shouldn't be a case of which more important. That's, I think, you treat humans, if you treat humans well, that is the most important thing. And if he's not doing that, then serious conversation needs to be had. But if you look at it from an on-pitch perspective, you can kind of understand. I don't think you can criticize him, but I do know what you mean. It is this weird sort of 50-50 situation. But yeah, listening to what you, Connor, Charlie, Karis, everyone on that other channel at United say, I find it just so fascinating, the whole discourse about it. But yeah, if you're looking on the pitch, like you can fully understand why he's being offered a new contract.
Fascinating is a word. B, we always encourage questions from the viewers, and one's been thrown at you. So we'll give you the opportunity to answer it. But Uncle Montana's saying now, what do you think of the criticism of Sleggers? That is basically Jonas. That she is basically Jonas, sorry.
I mean, I'm definitely a bit out of the loop. I haven't heard or seen any criticism of her. But from what I can see, I mean, I think the players seem to get on with her, like her. But maybe that's just what's been put out in the media. I don't know. They're definitely doing a lot better on the pitch, and that's all that we can really base this off. So from that, I would suggest that she is doing better than him. So I don't know. I think it's hard. I think that seems all right, and that the players seem to get on with her, and that's all you really can ask for.
No, I agree. It definitely is all you can ask for in that respect. Just finishing off with some of the conversations you guys are coming up with. JJ saying his only issue with Skinner is player relationship. He hasn't treated former players well. I don't want him to manage my team. Taylor treated a number of City players poorly. Do you know, I understand it. I hear it. I see what's being said. Equally, though, I would argue that the vast majority of these players that are whinging are players that just didn't play. And I do think if you're gonna sit there and have that conversation, you also have to look at it in the entirety. You know, this is where history goes wrong. If you just look at one side and you don't look at the other, is there just a little bit of annoyance that they're not playing? Because he'll tell you this, every football player that does not play football, they're not happy about it. And as far as they're concerned, the manager's going to be the worst person in the world for not picking them because they're all messy. So as far as they're concerned, they should be picked every single week. And that's the sort of confidence you need to have to be a footballer. So I totally get it. I get what you're saying, but I do think the other side of that is equally as important. And the truth is we don't fully know everything that's happened behind the scenes there. Michael's saying the actual football's been an eyesore most of the time, but yet we're third. And that's the trade-off, isn't it? What do you want? Super free-flowing football, but finishing fifth? Or do you want, you know, the chance to be in the Champions League and try and get those players in that are going to compete for it? And I think that's the issue. That's where we are at this moment in time. And Shane saying, I think part of the issue somehow with Skinner is how he presents himself publicly and some of the things he said. And I completely agree that Mark Skinner and press conferences go together around about as well as oil and water. So probably a good point to be made there. So yeah, there we go. I think it's been very interesting watching how United have got on. But of course, United's biggest rivals at this moment in time, aside from Arsenal, who we'll get to next, are of course Manchester City, and that is alphabetically, if not kickoff time, the next one, because all of the rest of these kicks off at 2, with the exception of Chelsea being the late kickoff. So Brighton and Manchester City, an interesting one. Sean, we'll throw back over to you, being the resident Brighton expert as well. But very interesting. City taking the lead in the first half, 1-0 at half time, and then not a lot in terms of goals scored until right at the very end. Miedemar obviously scoring to make it 2-0, and then you guys putting one back in the 92nd minute, so with 2 minutes added on. No danger, no chance of you lot maybe getting that goal before Miedemar got hers and potentially doing a West Ham there?
I mean, if you look at the stats, Brighton had 23 shots compared to City's 12. Like, it's not often that we pepper a goal, especially pepper a goal of a top 4 team. So it is frustrating that we haven't been able to find a goal. I think that's been a bit of a problem for us all season, just having that instinct in front of goal to finish a job off, to get back into games. But yeah, I didn't expect to beat City. I thought maybe we'd get a draw, but that's just one of them. Fair play to City. I think they needed to bounce back after midweek, but it's just I feel like it was just one big meh that whole game. I couldn't really know what to say about it. It's just we couldn't score. Yeah, I think you could easily say we're missing Tierland, and Yeah, I can see Barry smiling there. Oh, look, we've got Turland. Yeah, oh, I know. It's very fun, isn't it? Yeah.
No,
But no, look.
listen, right to reply. I wasn't smiling for that. I'm smiling because, and you'll admit this, you have mentioned about Taylor not necessarily being all singing, all dancing, as a lot of people have said that she might be, and that's why I'm smiling, because I was thinking you would go into that, and you didn't. You just went, yeah, you could say we're missing them, and that's why I was smiling. It was nothing to do with, yeah, we've got her and you haven't. But now that you mention it,
No, look, I mean, yeah, Turland's done very well this last couple of months. You can still look at the months she didn't do much in it, ask questions, but fair play, she has turned it around a little bit. But yeah, it's just I don't have too much of a problem with us losing that one to City. I'm slightly worried about our running, about finishing that top half, but overall, I think City needed to do what they needed to do in the end.
no, I think that's fair. And I mean, you've been there as a footballer. How frustrating is it to know you've been the better side, to know that you've had the better chances, more attacks, and that the other side have basically just had a couple of sucker punches against you, and their clinicality, their ruthlessness has done for you, where you've just not been able to do it. I mean, you're a defender. Do you get frustrated? Do you blame the attack? Is it like, my God, you guys need to do your job? We've done our job for X amount of time. Why can't you score a goal? If you'd have done that and make our life much easier. Or is it the old cliche of, you win as a team, lose as a team?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. I've played in many a game where you feel like you're the better team. You come off the pitch at the end feeling like you deserved at least something, but you've come away with nothing, and that's about as frustrating as it gets. I do think it is always a team performance. I don't think you can blame one player for a result or one part of the team. I think it's always a whole team performance, no matter what. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much as frustrating as it gets, especially as a defender. If you come away and you're arguably the best team, had the best chances, all of that, but still haven't got the result, it's frustrating. But I do feel like it does work its way out over a season. I do feel like if you are continuously like that, like, luck will be on your side eventually. And I do think it works its way out, but it's still frustrating in the moment for sure.
No, it definitely is. We've been talking a lot. We had our little prediction show as to where people thought the clubs were going to finish with regards to the top four. And City, as it stands, are 7 points behind both Arsenal and Manchester United with 4 games to go. The best they can get to is 47 points. One of those games is obviously against Manchester United, so that's a big one. If they lose that, then obviously it severely dents the number of points they can get, and clearly strengthens the hand of United. Knowing what you know now with regards to the results, the fact that City didn't manage to get the win in the league against Chelsea, all of those types of things, do you see Man City now staying outside the top 3?
I think it's a hard one. I think Man City is struggling with a lot of injuries at the moment as well. And I think, yeah, I don't know if I see them getting into the Champions League at this moment, especially with injuries and stuff. And you've got to think about the fatigue that they're going to be dealing with over the next few weeks after 4 games in 12 days, whatever it was against Chelsea. There's going to be a knock-on effect, even if that's not injuries right now. There'll be injuries maybe in a few weeks. So yeah, I don't know if I see them getting into the Champions League at this point.
No, I'm not convinced I do either, but of course it will be very dependent on how United get on. I think most people will think that Arsenal have pretty much posted that now. They should be okay, but of course United still have to play Arsenal as well. So that top 4, it's going to be a big one. Can't wait to see how it works. Sean, do you want to change your opinion on City, or do you still think they're going to sneak in?
It's like B says, the injuries. You look at, there's no Firmino, no Shaw, no Hemp. That can easily be your starting front line. No Greenwood at the back. Knack is injured, and all I'm thinking, if God forbid, if Yui Hasagawa picks up an injury during this international break, it's they fall apart. Like they're one sort of key injury away from totally falling apart, I think. And I think that's going to be their Achilles heel now for the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, I think you might be right on that one. Emily Moxham does not think that City are going to be able to keep up with Arsenal and Manchester United, and that is, of course, why we love you. And Shane saying if top four doesn't go to the wire, the WSL season is ending with a damp squib. Everything will already be decided. And, well, I mean, you still say that. I'll leave that Chelsea bit for now. I'll come back to it, maybe, at some point. And yet that was not helpful for City at all. That is not good news for them. We'll move on to the Arsenal game because that also kicks off at 2. Crystal Palace, bottom of the table, needing to put up a little bit of a fight up against Arsenal, who, unlike City, took half the time and a little bit more to be able to open the scoring. Beth Mead with a goal in the 14th minute. Alessia Russo, Sean scoring in the 26th there. Then we had an own goal, which is always fun. And then Arsenal finishing it off. Yeah, there's a lot of injury time goals or goals right at the end of the games this time round. Another one from Beth Mead. A 4-0 win, biggest win out of the day. Arsenal are looking quite strong. They're finishing strong. For all this talk that people are mentioning about Slagers, actually, they're doing quite well.
Yes, they are doing well. I will say it. I'll say it now. It is Crystal Palace. They are bottom for a reason. They are not a very good team. So, a team like Arsenal, with the resources they have, even their second 11, should be easily beating Crystal Palace. I'll just say that. But, you've got to beat what's in front of you. And Chloe Kelly, again, I've been so impressed with Chloe Kelly. I'm really actually quite happy for her because I think she went through a lot at City, but you can just see what a bit of confidence, a bit of love can do to a player. And it's really nice just seeing her perform week in, week out, setting up goals, just being involved in that attack. I think that's the biggest plus in this game. And Beth Mead scoring 2 again. I mean, I'm not too sure about Beth Mead's future at Arsenal, but you know what? Fair enough. She scored 2 goals, and that first one was a superb volley. So all credit to her for that one. But yeah, see, we'll get on to. I'm sure we'll get on to Chelsea, but it is just Crystal Palace at the end of the day. I'm sorry, but there, yeah.
Had it been 4-0 against Aston Villa, would you have had a slightly different approach to that segment just there?
No, if it was a 4-0 against a West Ham or an Everton, I'd say right, okay, that is a fair result because they're 2 on good form. But a Villa and a Palace, no, come on.
Interesting, very interesting. B, looking over at Arsenal from your point of view, I mean, you can only beat what's put in front of you, right? And ultimately, you still have to go and score the goals. I think when you get a nice early one, like Beth Mead did, it certainly makes the task a lot easier because you're not scrabbling around looking for that goal. But, I mean, you look at those players, Mead and Russo. Russo has 100% picked up her game, I think, for Arsenal. Her output for United was always, I think, what let her down. There was never any doubt about the potential. We always said at Manchester United that Alessia Russo had a lot of potential. Would you argue that she is now starting to show some of that potential in the goals that she's scoring for Arsenal? And how good is it to have the likes of Beth Mead back and firing in the way that she was prior to her injury?
Yeah, I mean, I think Russo definitely showed her potential at Man United. I think she's definitely, she's smashing it at Arsenal. She's doing really well and has definitely stepped up her game. But yeah, Arsenal looked good again. Like Sean said, it was against Crystal Palace, and I think we're always expected to win that game and win it quite comfortably. But yeah, Arsenal looked good, and I think it's a good way for them to go out into the international break with like a comfortable win like that. So I think really positive for the Gunners.
But I mean, that can be a bit of a drama, can't it? Knowing, you've just said there, this is a game we're expected to win. That expectation isn't easy, is it? To go walking into a game that you're expected to win, you've still got to score. Scoring is not a given, and these are still professional football players that you're playing against. It's not just, they're not playing against me. I'm sure they'd score after 3 minutes of me trying to dive around in goal. But these are professionals. They've still got to go out there and do the job. And as we'll see when we get later on to the likes of Chelsea and even Leicester Spurs, it's not as simple as just going out there, scoring goals and winning games.
I think, like you said, that early goal completely turns it around. I think that's quite demoralising if you're a Crystal Palace player in the position they're in. I think as soon as that early goal goes in, it kind of wraps up the game, or at least you'd expect it to. But yeah, you're right. I think that first goal was probably the hardest and the most important. But I think from that moment on, if you're a Crystal Palace player in the position they're in, up against an Arsenal, I mean, you kind of know where the game's heading from there. So I think that was a crucial one. But yeah, you're right. It's still against professional players. But after that first goal, I think everyone knew where it was heading.
And Russo scoring again 12 minutes later just sort of puts the tin lid on it, really, then, doesn't it? And then you don't help yourself by, say, yourself. But the own goal, obviously, killing off any such thoughts of getting back as well. So there we go. Lots of people talking about the Chloe Kelly going across there. There was an Awful United poll that went out there. There was indeed 70% of supporters who would welcome Chloe Kelly to Manchester United. I'm still not convinced that is going to happen or ever was really going to happen. I think that might have been a bit of PR spin potentially going on there. Who knows? But there we go. So Arsenal doing incredibly well. I think we're both agreed, or all agreed, that they will finish top 3. Yeah, okay, fair dues. So the next game, obviously, kicked off at 2 as well, was Leicester and Spurs. We mentioned them not so long ago. And very, very interesting game in this one. Again, Leicester and Spurs not really fighting for anything major. Spurs on 18 points with that draw, Leicester on 16 with that draw. Really both just trying to put away as best as they could from Crystal Palace. Palace now can only make it to 21 points with the 4 games left over, which means Liverpool are still not quite safe mathematically. But you'll be pleased to know, Sean, Brighton are now mathematically safe from relegation. You cannot go down no matter what happens, providing you don't play an ineligible player or something silly like that. So you should be all good. But it was an own goal from Spurs that led to Leicester taking the lead after 55 minutes, but Drew Spence scoring 7 minutes later for Spurs, levelled it up. And I think really that the best thing you can say, Sean, about Leicester and Spurs is it did exactly what you said on the tin. 2 sides that haven't really had a very good season, that haven't really done as well as they could do. In Spurs' case, haven't lived up to, well, probably to what they should have done. When you consider they reached the FA Cup final last season, to be in this situation really is, I suppose, a little bit criminal for them. 2 teams that just haven't really kicked on, haven't really done as well as they could do, and just see out a 1-1 draw. And none of them really able to kick on.
Spurs are abysmal. I'll just be point blank with that. They've not won a league game since the 26th of January, and that was against Crystal Palace, where they needed a 95th minute winner to beat Crystal Palace. It is horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous what Tottenham are going on. And it's all fallen apart. There seems to be, I think this is the problem with a manager like Villaham, and I think there'll be a couple of other managers that fall into this, is that they're very stubborn in their ways tactically. There's no willingness to change, to have a plan B, to maybe admit, okay, I was wrong with the way we're setting up. I think we need to do something to try and freshen it up. I don't think Villaham has it in him to change that and to just change his style in order to get Spurs just the points and a bit of positivity they need to see off the season. And yeah, JJ's there with what's going on, Rasso and Spurs. Rasso removed Spurs from his social media bio last night. So what does that indicate? There's something wrong? Who knows? But yeah, Tottenham. It's like who gets sacked first, Ange or Robert Villaham? I don't know. But you know what? Fair play to Leicester. I think the last two games, beating Brighton and a draw here, I think a really good turning point. And Hannah Kane has been really good in both of those games as well for Leicester. I think she was so unlucky that it was an own goal against her, an own goal for Tottenham yesterday rather than her goal. But yeah, I think Leicester just finding that bit of edge now at the end of the season. That's going to pull them away. And yeah, fair play to them, because when you're down at the bottom, it's quite difficult to find form at any time. But for them to start finding it at the end of the season is a really good job by them.
I mean, maybe Rasso removed Spurs from her bio because she was embarrassed, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. I'm joking. Don't write into the channel. We don't care. Beatrice, talk to me. We do care. Don't write into the channel. It's a gag. Right. Leicester Spurs. It's not the most exciting of games at the moment, and I think that's a bit of an interesting one. I mean, Uncle Montana here saying Spurs don't care enough about the women's team to sack Villemin. This is a guy who took, and he was the saviour of Spurs towards the end of last season. Everybody was raving about how well he was doing. He's taken Spurs to an FA Cup final. Obviously, they didn't go on to win that one, but they played all right, and it took an absolute thunderbolt from Ella Toone to open the floodgates on that game. But a season later, this is where we're at. How is it, do you think, that these things happen? How can you be in a situation where the manager is all singing, all dancing at the end of one season, and then the drop-off is so big? Is it that Spurs just didn't improve well enough over the course of the summer, and as a result, haven't been able to make that step up? Or is it that the other teams around them have stepped up more? Because it's a really weird one. You look at your top four, Chelsea won 15, Arsenal and United won 13, City won 11. But when you start looking between just 5th and 9th, you've got 1-6, 1-6, 1-5, 1-5, 1-5. It's like nobody really is taking a stand. They're all sort of taking points off of each other and drawing and losing and winning, but there's not really anybody stepping up wanting, it seems, to challenge the likes of Brighton for that top 5 position and to start trying to knock on the door to challenge the top 4. Why is that? What's happened here with Spurs, do you think?
I don't know. I think it could be anything. It could be something as simple as the players aren't happy with the environment. Something's changed behind the scenes. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe other teams have improved and Tottenham haven't. But I don't know. I feel like it feels unlikely for that to happen in such a short space of time. But possibility. I don't know. I think it's really hard, but it probably suggests bad management. I'm not even necessarily talking tactics. Bad player, group, environment management from the manager and the staff at Tottenham potentially. I don't know. It's a really tough one, but in terms of the middle of the table thing, I think at this point of the season when players are tired, and especially those who are doing back-to-back international duties and with the Euros coming up, I think for teams middle of the table, it can start to become a bit, what are we playing for? They may be looking to the Euros, they may be looking to next season, and the back end of the season starts to feel slightly insignificant maybe. I think it's really hard, especially with the amount of games that the teams are playing with internationals and everything. It is hard, but that might be a case of what's happening. There's more people looking ahead to what's next rather than what's currently going on with the league.
I mean, it is hard. I mean, we can say now, because obviously you've splashed it all out over your social media, but we know that you were at London Seawood in Tier 4. You've gone off to AFC Sudbury now, very much in a mid-table position. How do you think, it's not the only team you've been at where you've been in mid-table, you were at Stevenage for a while, we have our moments where there's no title to fight for and you're just sort of playing around. How do you motivate yourself as a player? Because you've just spoken about that. Granted, you didn't have a Euros coming up or international games like that, but Do you find it's easy is the wrong word? Do you find it's possible? Can you motivate yourself enough to put in the same level of effort prior to the match, knowing that really it's just 3 points that's on the line? And great, it's not like we're getting paid anymore. You're not going to earn £1 million more for finishing 5th than you do for finishing 6th. It's just a pride thing. How hard do you find it to motivate yourself in these sort of middle of the table, not really too much going on around it games?
I mean, me personally, I don't have an issue with that. I want to do the best I can. Like you said, it's a pride thing. I want to finish the highest I possibly can in the league. But I think it's something that really comes from the top down. So at Sudbury, for example, every game is crucial. Like, we want to win everything, and that's really being led by the manager. The manager wants us to keep fighting, and every game is as important as it was at the beginning of the season. And that's, as well as coming from the manager, it's coming from the senior players in the squad. And it's something that really has to come from the top down. And then those younger players, or those who maybe aren't able to motivate themselves as much, it's easy to get dragged along by that. Whereas I think if you've got an environment where, you're right, the manager or the players at the top just think it's 3 points, it's not that important. They're going to finish mid-table anyway. 5th or 6th doesn't really matter. Like, it becomes harder for everyone else in the team. But I really feel like it's something that's where you require a really strong leadership team in the squad, player-wise, whether that's a good captain or just a good few senior players who are willing to take charge and willing to fight for everything, fight for the pride, fight for the badge.
So it's a culture.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with that fully, 100%. Shane saying, you do wonder if Tottenham's season last year looked better than it was because of the FA Cup. If Keating didn't make that error in the quarter-final, Spurs would have gone out of that stage. Yes and no. I think you can if about a lot of things. You could even put that at Man United. If always if with the game against Chelsea, even. If wishes were fishes, the world would be an ocean. They still did it. They managed it. City didn't manage to overtake them on that one. But yeah, I do see where you're going with that. It does maybe put a bit of a gloss onto what was otherwise still a relatively average season. Liverpool, Emily, we're gonna bring up your team now. So in true Des Lynam fashion, look away now. Although you do know what happened, so it's pointless really. But here we are. Aston Villa against Liverpool. Now, Sean, I'm not going to lie. I had this one down as a Liverpool win. Liverpool 6th in the table. You must be absolutely dancing the river dance at this rate, because if Liverpool had won that game, they would obviously be in 5th. You would be in 6th, and West Ham would be knocking on the door of taking you out of the top half. But Liverpool took the lead and through a penalty. Hobinger scoring in the second half, 0-0 at half time, obviously. But Villa turning it round. And again, a few own goals in the league this time round. And Kirsty Hansen, another player who used to play for Manchester United, in the 68th minute levels it up. And then, of course, it was an own goal in the 87th minute. Now, we were hoping that Freya was going to be able to join us this evening. She couldn't because she's having a birthday week. So my first question is this. Do you have birthday weeks?
I feel like I'm too old to have a birthday. I'm just getting through one day's enough for me, Don't need a week.
B, do you have a birthday week?
No, I don't really celebrate my birthday that much. It just feels like another day. So no, definitely not a whole week.
Well, you're far too young to be giving it it just feels like another day one for you. But absolutely, I'm the same way. I have things that I do around about my birthday that's not on my birthday, but I don't go, right, I'm entering birthday week. Let's see what's going on. So God bless her. She's off. She's having a great time, living her best life, and so she should. But she's elongated her birthday by 7 whole days, which is quite something. So well played her. But it's a shame. I wanted to have her on because obviously this is a big result, Sean, for Aston Villa. They were a point away from Crystal Palace. Palace were threatening to pull and reel Aston Villa in. But that own goal, with just a few minutes to go, makes it a 4-point differential. And down at the bottom, 4 points can almost feel like about 12. So in that respect, is that the result that's potentially, obviously potentially it could, is that the result, let's not sit on the fence, that's going to save Villa's season?
Yeah, I think it is. Mainly because you look at what Palace have got to come, and it's Chelsea, it's West Ham, it's Leicester, it's Manchester City. I think we can pin them down to defeats against Chelsea and Man City. I think we can pin them down to a defeat against West Ham. So that win for Villa is huge, and fair play to them. To come back from behind shows a lot of bottle, and they showed that they can do it. They can come back, and they did it. I think that's Kirsty Hansen's first goal for Villa since joining permanently, which is mad because I think I think Kirsty Hansen's a brilliant player. So good to see her score. And yeah, Liverpool, they scored 2 own goals last week against Arsenal. Scored 1 yesterday against Villa, and I'm very interested to see what Emily has to say about Liverpool, because I keep an eye on them this summer, because Matt Beard said before he left, in terms of contracts, that it was all in the players' court, that nothing really they could do financially. I think we're going to see how much Liverpool care about the women's team, because you've got out of contract Faye Kirby, the backup goalkeeper, Niamh Fahey, Kerry Holland, Taylor Hines, Fuka Nagano, Grace Fisk, and Yana Daniels. There are some big players, especially if you look at Hines, Holland, Nagano, Fisk. That's almost a whole spine there. So I'm really curious to see what Liverpool do, because if they lose all that, I think we could easily have another Tottenham or worse on our hands. But yeah, Freya's not here. I can't do Villa any justice in what I say, but no, huge result for them. And yeah, I do think that is the end of the relegation battle.
Yeah, it's just, it's a very interesting one, and B, I think I have to ask you this one in this respect, because Liverpool went on and had a brilliant result against Manchester United. They won 3-0 in a result that I think shocked a few people, especially with the way that United had been performing in terms of, as Sean says, just finding a way to get across the line. Weren't even at the races really for the first 35, 40 minutes, but took advantage of a couple of opportunities in the first half. And United just never got at them really after that. But since then, they've not done quite so well. This result against Villa is obviously not the one that they would have liked to have had. But they're not really, as I say, performing at the level they could have done. They lost 4-0 to you guys. Obviously, Sean didn't think that 4-0 was worthy of praising Arsenal for either at that point, really. But a 4-0 there, again from Arsenal. How do you think that is? How is it that Liverpool have gone from such a good result to dropping the points they have done in the last couple of games? Because they could quite easily be back up into 5th right now. As it stands, they are not quite there.
I mean, I've not been following Liverpool too closely, if I'm honest, but it could be fatigue. It sounds like they've conceded a few own goals, and like someone said in the chat, that's potentially body position of the defenders, which might just be that tiny bit of fatigue with them struggling to get into the right positions to defend properly. So it might be that at this time of the season. I think that's completely understandable, but not what you want, especially if you're a Liverpool fan. But yeah, other than that, I've not been following them too closely, to be honest.
So from your point of view then, as a player, and you're in that situation, you go into a match, you've done incredibly well, you've won a game that perhaps you wasn't expected to win, you're in the mid-table. How frustrating is it for you as a player to have these sort of results where one week you're winning, next week you're losing, then you're winning, then you're losing, little patches? Like, you miss that consistency. We all know that winning teams breeds a really good consistency, and they do incredibly well. You see them perform well. They potentially challenging for titles. You've been in teams by the same token who can't buy a win. They just keep going, and week after week it's negative. Do you think it's harder in some respects to be one of those mid-table teams, because when you're winning, the confidence is always high. When you're losing, the confidence is always low. So a win is like, oh, bonus. But in the middle, when you're not quite sure what you're going to get, it's a bit like when you take out those Revels and you're not quite sure, am I getting the raisins or am I getting the coffee flavoured ones? Like, you just never know what it is you're going to get. Why do you think that is? And is it quite difficult for you as a player?
It's definitely difficult. Consistency is so important as a player and as a team. But I mean, having been kind of in teams in both positions, the low confidence one, the losing every week, is probably harder, if I'm honest. But yeah, consistency is so important. I think the inconsistent kind of screams mindset issue to me. I feel like that's typically what the inconsistency often is partly down to, just a lack of mindset potentially. But in what way a lack of mindset, I'm not sure.
Interesting. Fair points around. Sean, do you want to defend your not mentioning how Arsenal beating Liverpool 4-0 was a good result, or are we just sliding past that?
No, I mean, that was a really good form, especially in the middle of two Champions League games against Real Madrid. I thought that was a really impressive performance. Yeah, that is a good 4-0. Okay, Crystal Palace are just a bad team. There, I will keep this agenda going. Okay, Liverpool are a good team. Crystal Palace, not good team. Let's get that. That'll be the line in the sand. I want that on the gravestone, please.
Not a problem. We can manage that. No dramas whatsoever. But yeah, there we go. Just needed to give you the opportunity to get that one out there, Sean. Well done. And then, of course, it's if that wasn't interesting enough in the WSL, everything seems to be set up. Everybody is sitting there expecting Chelsea to continue their unbelievable run that they have had here in the WSL. And it, to all intents and purposes, looked like they were going to do it. 2-0 up, Aggie Beever-Jones getting the second, and all swimmingly going for Chelsea. But the second half was West Ham United to steal. Martinez scoring in the 91st minute to deny Chelsea the win. Now, very, very, very interesting here, because the goal difference for Chelsea is actually exactly the same as the goal difference for Arsenal, which in itself is quite an interesting thing. Arsenal have won their last 6 games on the bounce. Chelsea have won 4, drawn 2. And of course, Manchester United have won 5 and lost 1. Thank you for that, Liverpool. Now, it's interesting. We've got offside goal being shouted already. I don't know if it was or it wasn't, so I can't possibly. We'll get Sean to talk about that in a second. JJ saying, what a game from West Ham. First of all, Sean, B, do you think this is a hangover from the what they call it now, the quadrupology or the quadrology against Manchester City? Because there was a lot of marketing on that. Do you think it was just that? Was it just a lack of concentration? Is it because West Ham have got a bit better? What possible reasons can you foresee for Chelsea to have dropped points against West Ham, who are still a mid-table side, whose last 6 games are 1-2, drawn 2, lost 2?
I mean, it screams fatigue to me. Like, that's all I can really think, especially with a equaliser so late on. It has to be fatigue for them. They've played so many matches, and you have to take into account that most of Chelsea's players are playing internationals as well, so they potentially get 1 or 2 weeks off a year. The rest of that is like in season with their international team or with their club. Like, their seasons are so full on, they might not have had breaks in years because of that. So it has to be fatigue with so many games in such a short space of time.
Yeah, injuries being brought up as well. And yeah, Millie Bright playing 360 minutes. It was a lot of games. And Sean, high stake games as well. These weren't just 4 games against a side that didn't really matter. Every single one of them had something on it. And I mean, huge for Chelsea. The effort that they would have had to have put in specifically in that Champions League night, having lost the only game they've lost that season, to be 2-0 down and to know that they needed a gargantuan effort, similar to what Arsenal had done the night before, to go and do that, to get those 3 goals, to see themselves across the line, to know that they won the game in the league as well, and to know that they won the cup. The effort they would have needed to put in. This is, again, Manchester City. It's not, and I'll say this for you, Crystal Palace that's being played 4 times. It's Manchester City. And for all of their injuries and things that are going on, they're a top quality side who are going to push you to win the game. We talk about Arsenal still needing to score against Palace, but Chelsea have still got to score against West Ham, and that's a much harder prospect to do, I think. So what did you make of the Chelsea and West Ham game, and should we read much into it?
First of all, I'm glad Tony brought up that Martinez was offside because if I remember correctly, Lauren James got a very, very, very offside goal for Chelsea against Brighton to get a draw, which Chelsea fans seem to forget, which, by the way, kept up their unbeaten record. So we'll consider that 1-1 there, Chelsea fans, for you and offside goals. There's absolutely no need to be concerned. If I'm a Chelsea fan, look, they need 7 points from these last 4 games, right? Those games are against Crystal Palace, Man United, Tottenham, and Liverpool. You've got Palace and Tottenham. That is 6 points. Theoretically, those are the easiest wins you're going to get all season. So they basically just need a point from either United away or Liverpool at home to win the title. And they probably will get that. So I don't think there's a need to worry as a Chelsea fan. Look, they've had 8 games this month. That is a lot of games, 4 of them against the same opposition. Mentally, physically, that takes a lot out of you. So I'm quite interested to see how many of their internationals perhaps don't play or get restricted minutes. But I think in all of this, I think what we're forgetting about is West Ham are on an absolutely incredible run of form. Rhian Skinner, I think we may have all pigeonholed Rhian Skinner as this some sort of manager, but the turnaround she has got, the investment that she's got in this squad, she's finally being able to have a good couple of transfer windows, and she's moulding a squad into her image. And the likes of Martinez, Pavey, Asai, Denton, they've all come on leaps and bounds this season. And it's a result that West Ham have deserved now for a good couple of weeks, a big result like that. So, look, Chelsea fatigued, yes, but you're also meeting a West Ham team who are vastly improved since the start of the season. So, yeah, all in all, I wouldn't panic if I was of a Chelsea persuasion.
Okay, so I'm going to throw something at you both now. So obviously we've got the international break coming up, but when we come back, Manchester United are away to West Ham. Now, Man United go to West Ham. Let's say they get the win against West Ham because they're still 2-2-2, like I say, in the last 6 games. So if you're going by form, you would expect Manchester United to get the result there. You need to accept that they've got the result in order for what I'm about to say next to happen. Arsenal-Leicester is postponed. Chelsea have to play Crystal Palace, who I know you think are an absolute carpet to walk all over, Sean, but you still need to go and score goals against them. And I'm pretty sure that Uncle Montana has said himself, Chelsea aren't always at their best after an international window. That's often when he thinks they will drop the points. So let's say they draw over there against Crystal Palace. The next time that Chelsea play, it's away to Manchester United. Now, if that happens, as we've just mentioned, Manchester United, if they can win that game against Chelsea, and it's a big if, I know that, but if they do, and in order to try and make the world exciting, we have to have this conversation again. It's only 1 point, the difference between Manchester United and Chelsea. If that happens, and I recognise that for a lot of you, you're going out onto a limb that you're perhaps not expecting to go out on, unlike me, listen, I'm proudly imagining this as a fan, because is that not the point of being a fan? You get the opportunity to dream these things. But if that happens, who's your money on? Do you still get Chelsea across the line, considering the fact that in May then they've got 2 big games? They still need to beat Spurs away, who, again, could be absolutely anything, and also Liverpool at home. Both of those, you just don't know. You've got no idea what Spurs are going to turn up. You've got no idea what Liverpool are going to turn up. And even if Spurs do turn up, to be fair, Liverpool are probably the one most likely out of the two of them to cause any type of upset. So what do we reckon? If it turns out that Manchester United somehow get a result against West Ham and Chelsea don't get all their points, just draw against Crystal Palace, can you see Chelsea crossing the line still? What do you think? Does that change your thinking at all?
Oh, we're very much into if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bike territory here, Barry. That was a lot of ifs and buts and maybes. Oh gosh, right. I'd like to pick up on Tony's point about how not good Chelsea are after international breaks, and this is where I think your argument maybe falls apart here, Barry. Chelsea have got to come in after international break, and they've got FA Cup semi-final, and then Barcelona in the Champions League. I think they have to go away to Barcelona. They go away to Barcelona first, and I think they lose that, and then their bounce back game is Palace. That is perfect bounce back game, and then that sets you up nicely for when you have to play Barcelona at Stamford Bridge. So, in terms of that, I just can't see Chelsea tripping up. If they do, and United, yes, but you're forgetting about Arsenal, I fear, in this whole
Not at this
argument,
point,
Barry.
I'm not. And I'll tell you why I'm not forgetting about Arsenal, because at the point that I'm
Okay.
talking about, they wouldn't have played. So because their game against Leicester's postponed, I
Okay.
don't know when that's going to be rescheduled for. But by the time United play Chelsea, I mean, Arsenal will be away to Aston Villa that same day, but it'll be Manchester United that's a point away from Chelsea. Arsenal at the best would be 3. So, by all means, you can throw Arsenal into the mix as well. This is what I'm getting at. If you get to that point, Chelsea are only a point clear of us. They're 3 points clear of Arsenal. You hit a point where actually now, rather than it just being this lovely little gap, and Uncle Montana saying we only need 7 points, you've still got to get them. That's the whole point. You only need them, but you've still got to go out there. That's out of the 4 games that are being played. You need to not lose 3 by winning 2 and drawing 1. And if you don't, and you only win 2, goal difference comes into play. And that was why I mentioned the fact that Arsenal have got the same goal difference as Chelsea at the moment. So this is what I'm getting at. If that happens, do you still think Chelsea keep hold of it, or can you see a monumental Newcastle style falling off of the wheels?
No, because they've got Crystal Palace and Tottenham. It's easy. It's an easy 6 points. I
All
don't
right.
care who you are.
It's 3 against Palace, 3 against Tottenham. But you're not
Draw
saying
against
3 against Liverpool, or even 1 against Liverpool. And you're
Draw
not
against
saying
Liverpool.
4-1.
They will not lose to Liverpool at Stamford Bridge. I'm confident of saying that.
Okay.
And
Fair enough.
then that's your point. And then it doesn't really matter what happens against Man United. It's done. But I think
You say that they play Liverpool last. The game against Man United's already happened
that
in order for the scenario to occur.
As Tony said, that game against United's going to be rearranged. That Chelsea Man United game, that's going to be a midweek.
All my fun.
So I know in this miraculous world we're thinking of, there's even more permutations. But in a word, no, Chelsea will not mess this up.
Interesting. B.
I mean, I don't have much to add. Like, the scenario you've got here would be amazing, I think, for women's football generally. I think it would help the league, but I don't see it happening, unfortunately.
I'd much prefer B's answer. She made me feel like much less of a mug. That's well played, B. You can definitely come back. Right, listen, we're nearly done, but I do want to talk to you both about the tier 3 to 6. Now, this isn't delving deep into what's going on there, but just to give everyone an overview, just in case you haven't been watching the Low League Lingo shows, there was a huge idea that came in from the tier 3 to 6 people that we would actually really change the way that tier 3 to 6 is run. Now, when you consider tier 3, is 2 divisions of 12 teams. They were going to make that, so I think 14 teams for each division. They were then going to change tier 4 so that they had the same number of teams in each division there as well. And then tier 5 was going to join in tier 6, and they're going to make it bigger. Tier 4 was going to have playoffs for going up into tier 3. There was a whole raft of ideas that were coming up, and it still would have been 2 down from the Championship and then 1 up from the Northern and Southern Premier. But big news, the PGA teams were potentially also going to be involved. Now, they've done loads of road shows, loads of checking in with people. The FA worked extensively. You've got to give them credit. They've listened to absolutely everybody, all of the stakeholders involved, players, managers, clubs, the lot. But intriguingly, what they did was work out there was 1 or 2 things that people weren't happy with. And rather than go, all right, well, we'll work on that, they just said, well, we'll scrap it. We won't do it yet. We'll go away and think about it and come back with something new, which is interesting because it doesn't mean some of those ideas are gone. They might still use them. But equally, I think another problem that happened with it is that they put this out and there was no comment from the WSL or from the Championship. And then about a week later, they put out their own one about how the WSL could eventually become a closed league potentially, and they might have a little bit of promotion but no relegation, so they can extend and expand the number of teams in the WSL. The Championship would still continue as normal. And actually what you end up with is if you put 4 teams from the Championship up into the WSL, you've got to then feed in those teams from the Northern Premier and the Southern Premier up into the Championship. Otherwise, the Championship ends up with barely any teams. Now, if that happens and you've just changed your tier 3 to 6 with what you were planning to do, the WSL would have carried on till 2030. The changes in the tier 3 to 6 was due to happen, I think, in the 26-27 season. So all of a sudden, all those changes that have been made, you're going to get loads of teams shifted up, losing potentially 8 teams up from the Southern Premier and the Northern Premier. And that then has a knock-on effect to the rest of them in terms of how many you've got to bring up and lose. So that rather elongated part should give you all an understanding, a rough one. If you want to find out more, go and watch one of the Low League Lingo shows. We explain it all through there, or check the brilliant work of Tom Gary. He sends lots of things out there. I'm sure if you search it, his Guardian posts will pop up on that one, not posts by his Guardian, but the paper. And what will happen is you will realise just how mad a lot of this conversation was. My question for you two, are we in a situation where we all agreed that there's going to need to be some reform around women's football? I'll ask you first, Sean. Do they just need to sort out the top 2 divisions before they worry about reforming the bottom ones? Because it's an interesting, when you look at it, it's a pyramid. So when you look at that, the bottom actually should be the most important bit because that's the base on which everything's built, and it builds up to the top. The top only exists because the bottom is so full and built on good foundations. But having said that, it's just annoying. You couldn't build the top just by nicking stones out of the bottom. You've got to bring new stones in to try and fill those bits back in again, and that's not always easy to do. So is it best that they just decide what they want the top to look like, and then once they've done that and got that sorted, then they can worry about doing the changes below?
So my knowledge on this is very, very limited, but from hearing what you've said there and reading a little bit on it, what I feel like we're missing the most. I think I'll use the men's game as a small example here. You've got the Premier League and the EFL, and they clash a lot, and so do the EFL and those who are in the National League. It's always clash, stumbling blocks, things can never be agreed. What I think needs to happen for anything to work in the women's pyramid, the FA are not going to take over the WSL and the Championship. Therefore, I think the WPLL need to have stakes in tier 3 to 6, and then they have control of the whole pyramid. They can make decisions that they want in terms of teams in groups, relegation, non-relegation. I don't agree, but what I think needs to happen, someone needs to oversee it all because otherwise you're going to have constant clashes, everyone looking after themselves, and nothing really will get done. So overall, I think there needs to be one whole body covering tier 1 to tier 6 for anything to start working. That's what I take away from it personally.
Interesting. So that's why I started with you, but we're going to move on to somebody who's spent the vast majority, well, all of their playing career actually so far in that very set tier 3 to tier 6. I don't know how much of the plans you heard of and what your thoughts were. I don't even know if you were consulted in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But what do you take from all of this? Because it does feel very much like a brilliant idea by the FA. The top two lots have just come in, run roughshod over it basically with what they want to do, and it's kind of left the plans in tatters. And so as a result, they've got to go away, and they're very much now looking to see what the top two are going to do before they can implement their plans.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm part of the National League player rep group, which is they put out emails to all of the players in tier 3 and 4 asking if we wanted to be part of the player rep group. I think there's maybe 20 to 30 of us across all sorts of different teams, and we meet reasonably regularly to discuss the tier 3 and 4 and the changes we want to see. And this has been quite a lot of the discussion that we've had with the changes that they're looking to bring in. But yeah, I think you're right. From what I can tell from the meetings, the FA and the WPL or whatever they're called are so disconnected. I don't think there's any connection at all between what those two governing bodies are doing with the leagues, which is, as Sean was saying, where this all falls flat. It's not going to work if these two governing bodies don't work together. I just can't see how it's going to work. But yeah, the changes that the FA were looking to make, I like some of them, dislike others. Even yesterday at our game before the match started, a few of the players were saying that they're fed up of playing the same teams every year. One team goes up, one team goes down. Other than that, you just play the same teams over and over again for years back to back. And I agree with that. There's so little movement that you just play the same teams, and that does get boring as a player. So I don't know, it would be nice to expand the leagues, I think, and not just have one team go up, because, I mean, by about Christmas time, there's, whether you're fighting for that, there's about 2 teams in the league maybe fighting for that promotion, and everyone else, is just sitting back and watching it. Whereas if you have more go up, it might be more interesting. But I don't know, until the two governing bodies put their heads together and figure something out, it's not going to work if they're working separately from each other.
No, you're right. They absolutely do need to put their heads together. They've got to get themselves sorted, because for the good of the game, as much as anything else, if you want to see it grow, you've got to have that ability to have a grown-up conversation about what do you see your league looking like? How can we assist you? Because you're going to want, even if you forget the WSL for now, you're going to want a bridge between the Championship and Tier 3, and it needs to be a strong bridge. Maybe like the 7 bridge, but with less of a toll coming across it, one would imagine. So listen, you can whinge as much as you like, mate. There's no bridge in the world that should cost £7 something to cross. That's absolutely mental.
It's been free for over 5 years. You don't need to pay to come in. The tolls have gone, Barry, for
you not even have to, you don't pay the other way?
No.
They finally got rid of it.
Like 10 years ago.
Oh, that's pretty well. You can tell it's been a long time since I've been in Wales. It's not a place I pop to very often.
Oh, you should come more often. We'd welcome you with open arms, Barry.
Stop it. But that's brilliant. That's even better then. In that case, I'll change it to the QE2 bridge over at Dartford, or the M6 toll. That's a terrible one. I hate the fact you pay just to go around Birmingham. But there you go. So, yeah, I think 100% they've got to sort that. I'm actually quite impressed they've got rid of that. It's about bleeding time. That's wonderful. I'm actually going to celebrate that tonight. That's an amazing thing. Wonderful. I might actually go and visit again now that I don't have to cost money to get in. Completely thrown me off, that has, but that's a wonderful thing. So, yeah, I just think that the league as it is quite a nightmare. You were talking about one going up, one going down. There is a tier 5 one in the Midlands. I can't remember if it's the East or the West, but they've got a really interesting setup. So they're tier 5. There's only 9 teams at the moment in the Premier League, and then they've got 3 leagues below them. So they've got a north, a central, and a south. And so out of those 9 teams, 3 are getting relegated, because obviously one of those has got to fill in each of those, which means 3 are coming up. So when you look at it that way, that's a third of the league that will be changing. You then add the team going up and the other team coming down into there. That's 4 teams. That's almost half of their league that will be very different. So are you saying that lower down in the leagues, actually that's quite a good thing, and actually having more movement between them? Because I can remember Stevenage going down from the WNL. As you say, traditionally, only a few teams go down. So normally it would be 2. 2 would come down from the southeast, as it has this time round. And I think it was Ashford and Seawood are both going. So as a result of that, not quite sure where they're going to end up, possibly both in the London and southeast, with Barking coming back up to the eastern region again. But just 2 coming down. There was 4 that went down this season after COVID. Do you think it needs that sort of regular shake-up where you're getting maybe not 4, because that felt a bit mad, but do you need to be in more of a position where you're doing that, having more up and downs to change it and make it more interesting for the players and fans alike?
I think it's a playoff because you want that movement or more movement to try and make it more interesting within the league, but at the same time you don't want to be losing too many tier 4 level teams to tier 5 and maybe teams coming up that aren't quite ready for it. So it's a really hard one, and I don't know if the whole pyramid system is necessarily ready, and there are enough teams that are standard to step up and enough bad teams, I guess, in tier 4 that should be heading down to tier 5. So I don't know. I'd like to see more variety, but I don't know if the league systems are fully ready and set up for it. So I don't know. It's a really tough one.
I tend to agree, and Emily there agreeing with you as well. Uncle Montana saying that you're probably for Crystal Palace to be relegated to the National League. Would that be a rule that you'd get behind, Sean?
I think go champion, just not the same league as Brighton. That's all I want. Just always below Brighton. That's the way it should be. They can have lower end championship. That's fine.
Okay, they are below you though. That's the interesting thing. I mean, honestly, there's a little bit of me that would have liked Crystal Palace to be in with more of a chance this season now, because I never knew it wound you up this much. And the devil in me is wanting to exploit that. But never mind, we'll progress. I'll just lock that away for later. Michael Burt saying he predicts there's going to be an All England Champions League final, which will be an absolutely bonkers end to the season. So I have to ask you both on this one. Can you see a world where Chelsea get past Barcelona? And I could probably just about see that. But can you then also see a world where we manage to get Lyon beaten as well?
I can't see Arsenal beating Lyon whatsoever. I think if you look at it 1 to 11, if you match both teams up, I think the only Arsenal player I would take into that Lyon lineup is potentially Emily Fox over Ellie Carpenter. But that is it. I think every other position, Lyon are outstanding. That front 3 is sublime. I watched that second leg against Bayern. Wow, Diani, Chawinga, and Demornay. My goodness, absolutely insane front 3. And I'm quite looking forward to seeing how Russo does against Wendy Renard as well. I think that'll be a interesting battle. I think it'll be a good marker to see how much Russo has improved this season in particular. But I think Chelsea in their current form, I can't see beating Barcelona at all either. So yeah, I can't see an all English final happening at all.
I mean, it's interesting. Uncle Montana saying, a bit harsh, that Diani, Demornay, and Chawinga would probably make the Arsenal backline look like Crystal Palace's backline. They are absolutely getting roasted, Crystal Palace. If you hear Crystal Palace fans, you are welcome, believe it or not. No matter what Sean says, we at the channel, all views belong to Sean, not necessarily to the channel. We're quite content having you in the WSL there, Crystal Palace. So worry ye not. B, same sort of question to you, but I mean, JJ's saying about Leon destroyed Bayern. To be fair, Barcelona also destroyed Wolfsburg. You know, there were two very solid performances by the foreign sides, as we would see them, and the home side's doing incredibly well. Chelsea, obviously, as we alluded to quite often, doing well to defeat Manchester City. But Arsenal again working hard, getting themselves through massive matches against Real Madrid and turning it around. The fact that both English clubs have had a bit of a never say die attitude, can you see Chelsea and Arsenal making the final? And beyond that, can you see an English team winning the Champions League this year?
I mean, I think that would be amazing for English football if it was an all English final or if an English team won it. I think that would be brilliant. But sadly, I don't know if I see Arsenal beating Lyon. I don't know if I see that. Maybe I can see Chelsea beating Barcelona more, but another tough match. So I don't know. I hope that an English team wins the Champions League, but I don't think I see an all English final.
Interesting. Emily does. There's a few of them that see it, and Michael saying makes him sick to see it. But yes, he thinks Chelsea can win it this year. So I'm going to ask you both, Azria, who's going to win it be?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. Lyon are doing really well at the moment, aren't they?
They are.
Let's go with Lyon then.
Okay, she's sticking with Lyon. Sean.
Yeah, I'm also going Lyon. I think out of everything there, Lyon just their performances overall made me think, wow, more than anyone else. So Lyon.
Fair enough. And Emily, I'll just respond to what you put down in here. How do I feel about competing in the Europa Cup? I've got to be honest with you, right? The most important thing for me here is that it's happened. I think actually a second tier European event with the men's, I'm not convinced it was the most important thing to have. But the UEFA Cup, as it used to be called, ended up being a really good second tier European competition. Now, obviously, they went mad, started bringing other things. You know, you get the Europa League, you get the European Conference League. They've got all of that jazz going on. But I actually think that for women's football, this is exactly what's needed, because you are really trying to give teams the chance to, as Bees mentioned, play against different teams to increase revenue streams and increase interest and increase abilities. More importantly, I think one of the massive things that's being noticed now in international football is how that has grown through these teams playing each other as much as they have. And I really do think that the Europa Cup will be a massive, massive positive for women's football, because you get these likes of your Barca's, your Lyons, your Chelsea's, teams that are generally doing well in the Champions League. They're not going to be losing it. They're just not. They're always going to be there. So the ability to have more European football played, especially for teams that could get relegated from the Champions League qualifying stages, helps to build that ability, because you can only get better through experience. You need to be experienced in European football. And the fact that you might only experience 2 games because of the fact that you were in the qualifying stages and then you're out isn't great. So I genuinely do think that, listen, I'm not one of those who is particularly arrogant in that respect. Listen, the cup's a cup. As far as I'm concerned, if United win anything, I'm absolutely delighted. So that would work for me. Do we both agree with that in terms of the Europa League? Last sort of questions there.
It's brilliant, and so I cover Welsh football, and so Cardiff City have won the league again this year, so they'll be in the Champions League. But what this Europa, or the second competition does for those teams in the very first qualifying round of the Champions League, because it's a little mini tournament. You've got your winner goes through to a final, then your third, and then you have a third place. If you win that third place game, you get into the Europa League, which is huge for like teams in Wales, in the Republic of Ireland, in Northern Ireland, in these smaller nations. The chance if they can win that third game and prolong their European adventure, that's only going to improve competition across the whole continent. So I am I'm so for this Europa League happening.
B, would you go along with that?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's brilliant for the game generally. I think it's been coming for a while. It's been needed, and yeah, super excited for it to happen.
Absolutely. And Emily, listen, you're right. I think there will eventually become an expansion. There's only so long it can last with it being 4 groups that you generally tend to have when you get in there. It won't be long. And this is why this one's needed. I've said it a million times. I'll finish the show by saying it again. We all want women's football to grow. But in the same way that a baby needs to be able to crawl, walk, then run, you've got to be able to do it. You can't just turn around and go, right, come on, baby. You need to be doing a Usain Bolt now and start running everywhere you can at the quickest possible speed. And this is a stepping stone for me that helps to do that. Because once you build up these teams so they have that continental experience, then they'll be able to perform at that top level and they'll be able to expand that into more leagues. So rather than having the 4 little mini leagues, you could perhaps have 6 or 8 like you normally do. And all of a sudden, what that does is opens up the room for the teams that you're talking about to have the opportunities to come in and perform at that second level, which again, just makes football bigger and better. So I think personally, that's where I am with it. I can understand it from your point of view. You're hoping that Liverpool are going to scrape into 4th, 5th or 6th again, and potentially you can get some European glory from the women's team. But for now, you're just going to have to make do with another Premier League title, I fear, from the men's channel for you on that one. So there we are. Gang, it's been an absolute pleasure to have the pair of you on again. B, good luck for the rest of the season at Sudbury. I hope that all goes well for you. I think it's a great fit and something that you'll do incredibly well at. Where can people follow your career and your absolute mutterings about Arsenal?
Thanks, Barry. You can find me on most social media channels at Beatrice Rogers _.
Wonderful. And Sean, if anybody would like to cross the free bridge of amazingness into the wonderful world of Wales, I would not recommend them trying to find you because that would be stalking and that's an arrestable offence. But where could they follow you social media wise?
Yeah, at Sean Misra on both Twitter and TikTok. Yeah, I'll be with the Wales camp for the next week and a half. Some exciting games there. So, yeah, if you want any of that information, come on over.
Excellent. That's where you need to be. If you haven't, make sure you're liking and subscribing. Everything that's all for WOFO. Listen, we're trying our best. We're trying to build it up there that little bit more and more for you. So keep going on it. Get on Twitter. Get on. That's it, really. Just Twitter and here. They're probably the main 2. I can't commit to doing Instagram. I haven't got it yet. There might be a couple of TikToks to come though. So please do get yourself in there. And happy Eid Mubarak to anybody that celebrated today. That's it. We will be back Wednesday. Lower League Lingo. Can't wait. More champions and more people being relegated to discuss. It's tier 5. And I can't wait. We'll see you then. Good night all.